Good morning, YouTube. Bright and early Thursday morning. We have a Thursday through Monday NFL slate to kick off tonight. I am, of course, your buddy Choppadong, coming at you once again with another YouTube video. This one might be the only attempt at a dual combined football and hockey video podcast tips, whatever you want to call it. I'm going to talk fast because I got a bunch I got to cram in a short period of time. I am a coach and contributor at DFSarmy.com. My name on Twitter is at Choppadong. You can follow me in both places. You can always look me up, ask me questions via DM or tag me or whatever. I'm willing to talk anything with anybody at any time and help you get better at daily fantasy sports. That's my whole deal. So let's dive in. I got asked a couple of questions yesterday. These YouTube videos are really picking up steam and are really seeming to reach a lot of people and help a lot of people out. I thank you guys for the subscriptions, for the likes, for the promotion, for the sharing out on Twitter, the things that you're doing to help me spread the word. As this industry goes, you're going to notice everything is starting to get locked up. As FanDuel and Draftkings and whatnot start pulling their affiliations off the table and screwing all of these long-time info providers, they're forcing these guys to go premium. They're forcing these guys to charge you. So those of us out here that are willing to give a little bit of free information to just let you know what our community is about, we are getting very rare. We're getting farther and farther and farther down the road of being forced into the premium game, which I don't mind. I agree, everybody should be paying for their shit, but you've got to find the right shit to pay for. I happen to represent one of the best, so jump in, follow me, and let's rock this NFL slate week 6 here on Draftkings, where I was asked to build a lineup. Being that pricing is so tight, I was asked, hey, I liked what you did on FanDuel yesterday. Can you do a little bit on Draftkings? Pricing's tighter there. Yes, let's dig in. I'm showing you a clip of the VIP research station for our DFS Army for our NFL stats. This is a position by position tab. This thing is beautiful. If you go down the weekly slate, oh no, I don't know what just happened there. I hope that didn't screw me. I'll do that. Okay, here it's unlocking. Wow, that was actually very scary. But very beautiful graphics designed by one of our math nerds, Burns. Does a great job week in and week out. You can see the spreads, you can see the totals, the implied team totals. You can see the DVPs and DVOAs, rankings of the offenses versus the other positions. Pick your weak spots. You can see a little bit of pass selection, which side of the fields are favored, which side of the field are more successful when a guy is targeting, so you can target where my guy runs most of his routes, on the right side, the left side, or what. And then you can see the key players and their projections along with some of the basic stats that we want to look at. What I do is I scroll down to the bottom and I start going by the positions here. This is one of my favorite little tools to use on our website, and here's why. When I'm looking at running backs, I want volume. You've heard me say it. Volume, 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 volume. And I'm looking for guys getting around 20 touches a game. Look, is it any coincidence that it's the expensive guys? If I sort this by salary, as I go down to the cheaper guys, look at what happens to my touches. They fall off the map. Is it any coincidence that the guys getting all the work, the workhorse bell cow backs are all up at the top in the price range? No coincidence whatsoever. But we're taking a look at these guys if we can and putting them in the best spots we possibly can according to Vegas and game flow and all this other sort of stuff that we look at. If you check on our podcasts and our other articles, the Wishbone, Geeks Picks, our Geeks podcast was just released this morning. So go to the website, dfsarmy.com, take a look at that. It's about an hour of your time. To be honest with you, this is what the experts are looking at, is these types of volume stats. So if I can find a few guys like this in a home and favored situation, I'm going to try and plug them in. On DraftKings with the full point PPR, I'm trying to also find targets. So if I scroll over just a little bit, I can find receptions and targets. And there's no coincidence, once again, that these guys at the top of the list are also factored into the passing game a little bit. You can find red zone carries and goal line work, and you can even find inside the 5, inside the 10 carries type numbers. This is what I'm going to do when I'm starting to look for the guys that I'm trying to target and trying to pick for my lineups every week. So if I'm going to dip over into DraftKings and start building a lineup, the first thing I don't do, I'm not a top-down builder. Top-down means we start at quarterback, we pick one, we start at running back, we pick a couple, we go to wide receiver. Oh crap, we're running out of money, so we pick a couple of those cheap ones and that's not how you do it in this industry. That's how the beginners do it. That's how we all did it at the beginning when we were growing and learning in this industry. But plugging into a community like the one I represent teaches you that's not the ideal or optimal way to go about things. What I need to do is I need to find value. And what I typically do is I start scrolling down to the bottom here and I start looking on my way up. What is the cheapest dude I could live with? And when pricing gets really, really tight on a DraftKings, this is what you have to do. So I'm looking at Eli Manning. I'm looking for quarterbacks that are home, are favored, are implied to score a lot of points, and are basically in a good spot to chuck a lot of volume too. And these guys, we're starting to kind of get into the range of the starters. I guess you could make arguments for some of these guys. We know that Hoyer had a great week last week. I mean, Simeon is probably the first one on this list I would look at, being that he's home and he's favored. But I don't like his spot necessarily this week. I'm going to keep coming up a little bit. Find me, nope, Carr's supposed to be back, but I don't know. Bradford, maybe. I think he's a ways away. Carson Palmer, boom, high volume, home. Favored, facing a bad defense. He's got weapons. Lock them in. If I go to running back now, I'm doing the same thing. I'm kind of scrolling down into the bottom here, and I'm looking for I'm not running a Zach Zenner. Why? There's no volume with this guy. If I go to his game logs, he's getting an average of 3 attempts per game. You know, and I mean, no targets or anything. No, sorry. That's not even a GPP pick. So if I start scrolling up the list a little bit, and you're going to see me pass a few guys that I don't trust. Jerick McKinnon, here's one for you. He's been getting some of the love lately. 16 attempts in this last game after Dalvin Cook went down. We know he's been getting some receiving work. So if you wanted to start with him, everyone's talking about him being a free square. That's great. I don't know that I need to go quite that low yet. What I'll do is I'll throw him in there, and then we'll worry about upgrading as we go. Crowell, Riddick, Perrine, Frank Gore. There's one I'm looking for. Mr. Kamara with AP gone. I don't know if the volume is really going to matter much. It wasn't like Anthony or Adrian Peterson was getting a lot of touches as it was. But I look down in here. There's not a lot of rushing, but there are some receptions. We're in a shootout type of game. We're on a full PPR site. I don't mind me some Kamara if I'm not going to end up taking a Drew Brees or somebody else like that. So I throw him in as my second running back. This is not ideal yet. I don't have much of a floor with these guys, okay? So, and a position as important as running back, not ideal. I need to be paying up, but I'm doing this to lock in some salary savings so that I can upgrade later. I move on to wide receiver, and I come down. I'd love to find something in the 3,000s. I don't know if I'm going to find it, to be quite honest with you. When I was looking, I mean, without taking total flyers on Juju, you know, or Teddy Ginn, or some of these other guys that I just don't trust. You know what? Speaking of running back, you want another one that I know is sitting out there? Andre Ellington. You want to talk about pass volume? You want to talk about somebody who's maybe stacked up a little bit? I think they're going to maybe give it to Peterson inside the red zone, or certainly inside the 5 if they get there. I don't know that Palmer's really going to be throwing a lot of touchdown or red zone type passes to Andre Ellington. What I do know is he's a double-digit target machine, and 16 points and 19, 20 points, that type of stuff without touchdowns. This looks fairly sustainable, and at a price point of 5,300, he's getting me 3x. He's getting me nearly 15 points per game. So I don't actually mind locking him into my flex either. We're going to go with maybe one of these guys, maybe 2, depending on the way the rest of this stuff shakes out. But if you can see what I'm doing, instead of going top down with quarterback, running back, receiver, I'm building bottom up. I'm going down to the bottom of the price pool, and I'm pulling out the value first, the major value first that I can find, that I can trust, that I like, that I know is in a good spot. And now all I'm trying to do is fill in the pieces again with the cheapest stuff I can find. Taylor Gabriel is a possibility. Willie Snead is a possibility. Don't trust him just yet. Jerron Brown, man, if you could trust those targets, I don't know. Will Fuller, here's one. People are gonna fall for this in cash. GPP, it's fine. Cash, 2 targets and 4 or receptions, 3 targets and 6 targets in 2 weeks. Here's why his salary is going up. Here's why his points have been so high. Touchdowns are not necessarily predictable from week to week to week. They're a little bit fluky. On a guy that's only maybe going to score 8 a year in a good year, he's already got half of them. We've got 11 weeks to go. If you're telling me he might score 4 touchdowns over the next 11 weeks, is this going to be the week? Doubt it. I'm not saying get off the guy and fade the guy. I'm saying he's a GPP guy. He does not have the volume flowing his way to sustain any kind of a cash pick, any kind of a punt. And I said this with Taylor Gabriel being one of my picks too, but at least he's getting a few more targets. And he's lost Mohamed Sanu. And we may have a Julio Jones that's a little bit hobbled. So who else are they going to freaking throw to? Austin Hooper, Devonta Freeman, Tevin Coleman. Your mouths to feed have shrunk in that offense. Your mouths to feed in that Houston offense have not shrunk, and you've got a quarterback that can run the football too. So these are just the debatable points you need to go back and forth within your head when you're looking at these guys. Rashard Matthews, target hog if he gets his quarterback. So we're going to be watching that news for and going up against a pretty bad secondary. So the more we keep going up and up this list, okay, we'll throw him in there. What the hell? Danny Amendola, don't know if the looks are going to be there. Well, there's some targets. There's some targets and a little bit of yardage, and there's some decent points. Hey, if we don't have, Gronk healthy, or if we don't have, obviously, Julian Edelman, maybe there's some Amendola love going around. Now, okay, so this is 3 punt plays. Again, I'm not going to use all of these. Look at the salary. I can get $7,200 per player. I've got $14,000 of salary left over. We're going to be upgrading here soon. Again, I'm going to scroll down, though, and I'm coming up to the lowest acceptable option price-wise. And who am I going to find? Zach Miller, boom, 2,900. Yeah, what do new quarterbacks tend to focus on? Dumping off to their running backs and looking for their tight ends. Is it a coincidence that his targets spiked last week? No. 7 targets, 3 receptions, 4 yards. That's 3 points, 4 points, 7 points or so. Well, 12 because he got in the end zone. So you're looking at a hard floor of 6 to 10 points for $3,000. I'll take it. I don't have any problem taking that one. There are others. We may go back and upgrade. We might leave him alone because even at a 0, he's not going to hurt me too terribly much. I go into defense. Can I pay $11,500 for a defense at the very top? No. But once again, like I've been talking about before, you're looking down here in the bottom at some of these defenses, and really and truly, you only have to go up about $1,500 to take the top defense on the week. Now, do I think the Broncos are in a great spot? Yes. Do I think that the Ravens are in a great spot? Yes. Redskins? Yes. Falcons? Yes. Jaguars? Tough defense. Look at some of these average points. The defense is a volatile position. I don't know, even though Blake Bortles is the quarterback here, I think this is going to be a smash mouth run back and forth type of game. I don't think there's going to be a lot of throwing of the football to take the Rams. The Philly is a lot of times is viable in a lot of situations. Man, if you can peg that Cam regression, maybe he's playing hot. Maybe he reverts back to being crap Cam. I don't really know what he's going to do, but the Eagles are always a decent defense, especially for GPPs. I'm going to stay a little bit higher myself. Well, Minnesota. I don't want to tackle Aaron Rodgers with Minnesota. Patriots would be in a smash spot if they weren't the crappiest defense in the league right now. Redskins probably about as cheap as I'm willing to go on this one. You know what? The Chiefs. Big Ben's road splits are terrible. He's coming off a lot of picks. He's thrown 7 picks this year to 6 touchdown passes. I could live with that. I don't know if I'd run it out in cash. Kansas City tends to be one of those Philadelphia type defenses. They bend, but they don't break. They take the ball away when they need a big turnover. They seem to get it. They occasionally run some back on special teams. Not a bad pick. Now, do I need that 200? I don't know. I'm going with the bigger spreads. I'd probably throw Washington in there. Maybe the Falcons in there for 100 more. But you know what? Then you look at that and go, well, if I've got 600 left to play with on the slate, I'll probably come up to the Broncos. So let's start with Washington just for the hell of it. And then we'll run in. Notice I'm not paying attention to correlation or anything yet, but I've got $8,100 left to play with. First place that I'm going, sorry, I am going somewhere in this running back. I don't mind Ellington. Really and truly, to me, McKinnon, everybody's high on him. He feels like the weak link to me for some odd reason. So if I've got 12-2 for a running back, yeah, I can take Bell and chop up all but 3K. I can go Kareem Hunt. I can go Fournette. I can go Gordon, Gurley, Freeman, Montgomery, C.J. Anderson. Let's step up slightly. Let's go up to C.J. Anderson. C.J. Anderson's in a smash spot being, whatever, 8, 9, 10-point favorites at home. He's getting the 20 carries that we look for. He's factored into the passing game a little bit. I know New York is a tougher defense with a front seven that's sort of kind of stout, but they're going up into the altitude, and we might give the we just don't care anymore type offense, or production from the Giants this week. So it just feels like one of those spots where unless Jamal Charles becomes a factor, C.J. Anderson is just going to be pounding the rock down their throats all game long, and that's just the way things look according to Vegas. I don't mind running him. I don't mind keeping some exposure to Kamara in that New Orleans game because I don't know that I'm going to go Willie Snead, Kobe Fleener, Drew Brees. Michael Thomas would be a great idea if I could get up to him. So we'll see how this goes. I've still got 5,600 to play with. Targets. Let's take Gabriel out. Let's upgrade a wide receiver spot. And just kind of poke and play. I got 10-2 to do this with. And I'll get up into the, above the 5,400 range because like I said, I'm going to upgrade a little bit slowly. I tend to build balance. Devontae Adams has had targets. I don't know that I like Minnesota's defense that much, but I do like the fact that Xavier Rhodes should be all over Jordy Nelson, and who else is Aaron Rodgers going to throw to? But a guy getting some target love and obviously a factor in the red zone. I don't mind a target floor of 10, for almost 6K and upside of 25. So if I throw him in there, I might look to upgrade another receiver with the question marks here. I don't like Amendola that much, but the targets really did impress me. Let's take Rashard Matthews out and let's look to upgrade a little bit more. Prior to Deshaun Jackson, that's more of a tournament play. Demaryius Thomas probably factored out. Bad secondary in Green Bay. Thielen with Diggs being questionable. If Sam Bradford starts, I'm going to look here for sure. Funchess has been interesting. If Cam's playing well, look at these targets. And look at these touchdowns and look at the points. 6,100, I want to see about 12 to 13 points if I can find it, and I'm finding 18 to 26. Not terrible. I can afford to come up a little bit higher here. Garcon is another one, but he's not facing a really, really super soft defense. Tyreek Hill has a lot of upside. Kelvin Benjamin's another one. Let's take a look at these targets. Not a lot of targets. Funchess is being more targets. I know there's a mismatch in that Philly secondary, and I know that he's a play you could play tonight if you wanted to, but I don't have enough targets in a PPR league to really want to jump up to this level. Jarvis Landry gets all the targets, doesn't get a lot of red zone work. I just don't know what Cutler's going to give me. There's a lot of doubts there. T.Y. facing a bad Tennessee secondary. Targets, yardage. He's just missing some of the touchdowns, but he's a little boomer bust. Look at this. This isn't a cash play. I can't handle 6 points out of him. So I'm taking a gamble for the 31. I don't know if that's what he's going to get. Larry Fitzgerald. This is going to suck. But, the targets are there week in and week out. We know that Palmer's going to be throwing a bunch. It pairs him with my quarterback right now as I'm building. I've got the 10-point floor, 13-point. But, it's okay. Price is up a little bit high. I need that, more than 13, 14 points out of him. So that may be a floor type play. That's not what I'm looking for right now. Golden Tate to run the other side of the football. Not a red zone guy, but, gets some targets. But he runs such short A-dots. But again, I'm fishing, man. Chris Hogan, here's one for you. Chris Hogan, look at these targets. Quite a few targets. 5, 6, 6, 6, 9, 11. Got the yardage. He scored touchdowns like mad. There's your floor. 7,000. I'm looking for a 13, 14-point floor, and I've got it every week. So if I wanted some exposure to New England smashing up the Giants, now I can't run Hogan and Amendola without Brady. So being that where are we at? 15, 16 for cheaper? Ah, man, I almost got to leave him in there, don't I? Fine, we'll keep going. Jordy Nelson. There's Michael Thomas. Look at that. Pretty cheap attack here, 20, 13 points. So again, we're getting into that range. We're getting the targets. We're getting the love. Let's run it. Now that brings in Kamara without Breeze. So do I need to come up off of Kamara a little bit? Maybe not. I got 2,600 to play with here. What does that give me? That's if I'm happy with Palmer. I could come up off of Palmer and get up into Alex Smith. And I know I hate sounding like this, but it might be time to really be considering Alex Smith. He's throwing the ball 20 to 30 times a game. He's got a little bit of a rushing floor. Um, he's going to run the ball, pull it down, and go with it. He's throwing some touchdowns. He's airing it out a little bit more. His point total 29, 27, 15 is his lowest of the season. He's got 30 a couple of times. You know what? That feels a little bit safer than Palmer. I mean, if I look at these point totals, 15, 20, yeah, okay. 6 one way, half dozen the other. This gets us off of our friend um, Deshaun Watson that everybody's going to be on. But Alex Smith for 300 more, oh God. See, this is why you kind of can't go away from Deshaun Watson. Look at these point totals this guy's been rocking. It's going to slow down at some point, but is it going to slow down against Cleveland? I doubt it. So for 300 more than Alex Smith, do you like him better? You probably should. For, 500 more than Carson Palmer, do you like him more? You probably should. What's the point in spending above this? 24 points on the average. Now I've got Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers, but it's going to cost me, 1,500 more. I've got the salary to play with it, but then it costs me elsewhere. So let's throw in the old Deshaun Watson. Now let's look at what we can upgrade if we want to get off of Kamara because we've got Michael Thomas. So I go back into the running back spot, and Carlos Hyde, McCaffrey, Jordan Howard, Doug Martin. No. Nope, 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 nope. I mean, if you want, you can drop down from your flex and take Andre Ellington out, and you can put in a cheaper receiver. You can go back down to like a Rashard Matthews. You can also look at maybe going 2 tight ends. If I had Zach Miller and another tight end, who would my other tight end be? I do like Ryan Griffin this week, targeting Cleveland. That would pair up actually with Deshaun Watson and not be terrible. I don't mind Evan Ingram in a bounce back spot, being that there's just, good Lord, there's nothing else to throw to. Who's Eli going to dump the ball to? Now, granted, Denver's going to probably know that. There are some other cheaper tight ends that we could roll with if we wanted to. And if I drop Ellington out and throw in, somebody like an Ingram, then now I've got 8,000 for that other running back. If I've got targets, look at Ingram. If I've got targets here for, 0 for 4, it looked like an outlier given these point totals for, under 4,000. I'm looking at, 10 to 12 points most weeks. I can live with that in cash, even going up against Denver. If I get him out of here just to look really quickly at the quick DVOA, it's not that Denver's great against tight ends. That's where you've been attacking them. Now that may change because we don't have any wide receivers necessarily to worry about. But if it gives me $8,000 for a running back, look, I can get Fournette, Gordon, Gurley. There's Gurley. Deshaun Watson, Ingram, Miller, Thomas, Amendola, Devontae Adams. If I wanted to come up off of Adams, I could. C.J. Anderson, not the worst thing in the world. If I want to come up off the Redskins a little bit and get up to Baltimore Ravens, boom. I mean, you just got to mix, match, and play. This is how you work this. Now, I'm not going to get into the hockey lineup today. I wanted to. What the hell? If you don't like it from here, click out of here if you're not a hockey guy. But let's do it. Let's just transfer into the hockey stuff for the hockey guys, and I'll put a timestamp in there that if you want to do hockey, you just come to minute 22 or 23, and we start talking hockey. So that was just a rough idea of what you can do with your NFL on DK for week 6. Let's roll into hockey, and we'll build a kind of play with a hockey lineup as well. This is just what we do inside the DFS Army. We teach you how to build these fundamentally sound lineups. If I could get into the NHL, dang it, NHL tab. Go check dfsarmy.com out, by the way. Put in my ref code. Put the /ref/3 at the end of it. It's in the description. That helps people track where our target audience is coming from. If you guys follow me and you like me, again, like and subscribe the YouTube video, and we'll keep rocking and rolling with this kind of content for you guys, and we'll try and keep it free as long as we possibly can. If I wanted to shoot into the 7-game NHL slate, this is how I build my lineups. I usually do a free one. what we need to find is we need to find our goalie first, then we need to find some value, then we need to find where we're going to stack and correlate and what offenses we're going to attack. So the way we dive into that, the first thing that we start doing is we go into the starting lineups page. And there's no line here, but this Pittsburgh and Lightning game might not be a bad one. Florida and St. Louis, not necessarily great in that low under 3 implied goals per side, 5.5 over under, and nobody's really landslide favored in this game for a cash type of goalie. No big favorite here, nothing over 3, no big favorite here, almost a 3 in the Blackhawks. This is going to be a game that could go either way, to be quite honest with you. Both these teams are probably in play being division rivals and being quality teams. And yes, it pained me to say that for my Blackhawks and Wild lovers out there. That was not fun for me to say being a Blues guy. Vancouver is in a sneakier spot. Winnipeg has been allowing a lot of shots on goal. We've got a little bit of a favorite here, but nothing to really write home about. Same in Arizona and Detroit, nothing to really write home about in that we've got almost 3 goals, but no major landslide favorite. I've got Zetterberg, who's one of my favorite cash plays, night in and night out. I go down here, the biggest favorite on the slate. Here's Martin Jones at home in San Jose. We know San Jose. We like Brent Burns. We like a lot of the guys off this team. They're the only ones slated to score over 3 goals tonight. So this is where a lot of our cash plays are going to come from. It doesn't hurt that it's also a hammer type of situation in that you can look halfway through the night, see that you have about 200 player minutes remaining, and you can really get excited about the fact that if the game breaks open, you can really climb some leaderboards with everybody else spreading their love out in other places. So what I do when I look for this, it just gives me a good idea of where I'm starting. I'm starting with Martin Jones in goal. That's just the end of it. I don't care that he's the top priced goalie on the slate. I will work around that because this is my most consistent source of points. And when I do goalies, I'm looking for the win because it is a large chunk, like baseball. It's a large chunk of my point total for that player. And it's what helps me bring value when it comes right down to it. I don't like the 1.1 fantasy goals per game or fantasy points per game so far, but it is what it is. Vegas likes it. I like it. There really isn't another guy on this slate that I'm really fired up about anyway. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down into the Corsica.hockey site, team stats. I'm going to sort by Corsi for and Corsi against in the 60 category. That's taking down any shot on goal directed at the goal, whether it gets through or not. If it gets blocked, it still counts. If it goes wide, it still counts. Any shot fired at the net registers a Corsi stat. They take all of those for the season, divide them by 60 minutes, and give you what you get in a typical game for these teams. I'm looking for teams that shoot a lot, and I'm looking for teams that allow a lot of shots. And what I do is I match them up. I wish I could show you my little piece of paper. It got a lot of diagonal lines on it. I write down, say, Pittsburgh at Tampa Bay. And for Pittsburgh, they are Corsi 4 is ranked number 11. Their Corsi against is ranked number 3. That means they're 11th in shooting the puck. They're almost a top 10 team at firing pucks at the net. They are not great on defense in that they allow a lot of shots on goal, being the 3rd most in the Corsi against category. So what that tells me, when Tampa Bay, Corsi 4 is ranked 21st, they don't shoot the puck necessarily like the other teams in the league, but being that Pittsburgh allows a lot of shots on goal, we should get a bump in Tampa Bay's shot volume tonight. That may or may not translate into more fantasy points, but it's a good indicator that it's going to translate into more fantasy opportunity. And opportunity is predictable. Results aren't necessarily predictable, especially in a volatile sport like hockey. Hockey and baseball are 2 of the more volatile sports out there. You get opportunities and you just kind of hope to stack the odds in your favor and hope it pans out. You use correlation in these 2 sports as a result of it, where you're using the wingers and the centers and the defensemen kind of together so that if there's an assist and a goal, you get it all. It's a little more boom or bust. Therefore, this is more of a GPP type of sport. Cash sport, yes, but a more volatile cash sport. And as a result, we're looking for bumps in these opportunities to score fantasy points. So I don't mind Tampa Bay skaters. I will never mind Pittsburgh skaters. St. Louis and Florida didn't show me anything. If anything, St. Louis is a middling shots allowed team, and Florida is a high shooting team. So St. Louis has been getting outshot like crazy. So to be honest with you, you would think that would maybe suppress the shot output of Florida a little bit, but I don't know, man. St. Louis has been pretty bad to start the season. Maybe Florida's in play. Dallas, excuse me. Need more coffee. Dallas and Nashville uh, showed me a little bit. Minnesota and Chicago. Looks like Minnesota's going to get a bump in production because Minnesota is the 23rd most shooting team, and Chicago allows the 6th most shots. So just like Pittsburgh, facing them should allow some more shot volume for their opponent, which in this case is Minnesota. Winnipeg and Vancouver were in good spots in the same regard in that they shoot, they okay. Vancouver does not, but they're facing a team that allows a lot of shots. So if we're facing teams that allow a lot of shots, we should get that bump in shot volume. Detroit and Arizona, and then of course the cash game of the San Jose Sharks. It looks like it's going to be a little bit better spot. So what do I do when I go through these numbers? Now I translate this back into the starting lineups and I start looking for my targeted offenses. I have marked down, Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay. I just talked myself into Florida a little bit. Dallas and Nashville aren't terrible. Minnesota, Chicago, Winnipeg, Vancouver. I mean, who don't I like this, tonight? So it's going to be hard to narrow this field down and cut this team down. So we should get a pretty wide scoring night when it comes to hockey. Um, when I look for my value, just like I just did for football, I'm going to dive down deep and pull from value first. I've already got an expensive goalie locked in, so I need value and I need it quick. So I sometimes will take out some of the plays, that I don't really want to see for whatever reason, and kind of try and weed through some of the tall grass and get to the good stuff as quickly as I possibly can. And then I scroll down to fantasy points, or I sort by salary. I go down the fantasy points column on the right over there, and I go all the way to the bottom. And I use roto-grinders for this, and damn them for trying to lock all their premium stuff up. That's really pissing me off because they save me a ton of time, and we need to support some of these websites to keep them free. So free plug for roto-grinders until the DFS Army gets its own stats, which we don't have for NHL because it's a niche sport and it isn't apparently generating the revenue. You know what would generate the revenue? Let's get about 10 of you listeners to go sign up for dfsarmy.com today. That would work. I'm digging in, excuse me, down here at the bottom, and I'm starting to scroll up. And I'm looking for somebody who's matching or outweighing the salary. Brendan Dillon, San Jose defense. Guess what he's not going to be on? Here, let's close the Corsi tab. Close the research station tab. Let's guess what Dillon's not going to be on the power play. I don't want him. If my defenseman's not on a power play, I don't care. He's getting 16 minutes, which is okay, but he got a goal in there somewhere or something that's pumped this number up. I bet you Franson in Chicago's the same. If I go up, but I am starting at the bottom and I am cruising through this list a little bit. Franson, third line defenseman. No thanks. So I'm scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up. There's one maybe, but not on the power play. I already looked. Tanev, Forsling. I'm looking for standouts. I'm looking for something that equals or exceeds the salary. Chris Stewart in Minnesota. This really chapped my ass when I looked at it before because Chris Stewart is a goal scorer and whatnot, but he's not sitting on a power play unit. That pisses me off. Had he sat on a power play unit or been up on the second line, then I would absolutely be looking to play him. He's gotten off to a pretty good start this year. Ryder, same difference in Arizona. Part of the reason why is I can't then take a Chris Stewart. I can't correlate him with anybody really. He's got no overlap. I don't want to stack the third line unless I'm really hard up for cash. It's just too fluky. They don't get enough minutes. They're not skilled enough players. If they were, they'd be on the top two lines and on the power plays. Stay with what you know. Stay with what you know works. Janmark in Dallas, winger. Let's take a look at the old Dallas Stars. Where we go? Janmark. There's one. Wing, power play 2. Now, see, here's what I can do. If I like him and I can find somebody else that I like, he's on the power play 2 unit. So I can come up to the second line and grab a Spezza or a Ritchie. I can stay on the same line and grab a Hansel. And I can correlate with these guys. I can correlate with Lindell. I can maybe, even do a Steven Johns on the second power play or a second line defenseman because they're going to line up with some of these guys quite a bit. They're not going to be necessarily on that top line. That defense doesn't exactly work that way, but minutes overlap quite a bit. And when you get guys that are out there a lot, you can pair them up. So, Lindell on the power play unit would be somebody that I might look at for cheap if he's shooting the puck himself. Because he's going to shooting the puck gets redirects and power play goals lead to assists for the defenseman as well as goals for your wing. Now, when it comes to Janmark, I like the idea. If I plugged him in 3.7K, he's getting 16 minutes a game. For a winger, getting 16 minutes a game is pretty freaking stout. Not a bad little value play. Scrolling past it, and we saw we can correlate with other stuff. Mata and Pittsburgh. Let's check Pittsburgh really quick. Mata. Power play 2 unit. I don't like being on the third pairing, but the power play 2 gets me a little bit more ice time. I wouldn't mind seeing some penalty kill time out of these guys. The Roto Grinders used to put that out there. I wish I could see the PK1, PK2. I'd have to go to like a leftwinglock.com or something and double check that. But if he's on a penalty killing unit, especially the first one, I kind of like his spot a little bit more because he's in line to get some blocked shots. Those defensemen love to block shots. At least the good ones do. So these are just little areas. Hagelin, okay, where's Hagelin at? Not on a power play unit. That bums me out a little bit. Now, if I wanted to, I could full on stack this line and go Kessel, Malkin, Hagelin and get my exposure to Hagelin that way and line him up with Malkin and Kessel, who are a couple of decent studs. It's just one way to do it. Would I center my lineup around? Would I take a $7,000 Malkin just to get exposure to Hagelin? No. That's kind of reverse psychology. It doesn't work that way. LeBlanc in Pittsburgh or in San Jose, not terrible. Bonino. Here's one that I wanted to point out. And the reason why I wanted to point it out was because of his buddy up here, Scott Hartnell. Also exceeding salary, 5K, 5 points, 4.5K salary. Down here at Bonino, 3 points, 4.3K salary, so not terrible. You're averaging about 8 points per game out of the two of them, and you're only spending about, mid eights to get it. So when I'm looking at Nashville, I want to see if these two are correlated. The reason I set this up is I knew they were. They're on the third line, and I bitched about the third line, but they are also seeing power play time, one on the 1 and one on the 2. Yet they share the same line. This is a perfect cash type situation. It pigeonholes you into this line a little bit, which sucks, but it gets you exposure to the power play 1 line, which gets you exposure to Forsberg, Arvidsson, and Johansson's production for cheap. And the power play 2 splits off. Then you've got Fiala and you've got Smith, and then a couple of defensemen that like to shoot the puck, like an Ekholm. And Subban rotates around a little bit. But these are guys that all correlate together. For those two guys in this cheap price, you get exposure to damn near the whole offense. That's great for a cash situation. Does it have a ceiling? Not really. But does it have a floor? Hell yes. Because any goal that gets scored in this game, almost 3 of them, any goal that gets scored in this game, I'm getting pieces of it. That helps my floor in hockey in cash. It's consistent. It's predictable. So I love that little pairing. We scroll up, to Frick or whatever the hell his name is. Not a terrible spot. If I find him in Detroit on the first line, second line, power play 2, he doesn't get me access to Zetterberg or Nyquist. That sort of sucks. But he does get me Mantha. I mean, you use him as a one-off, and I've got exposure to that power play 2 unit, which isn't like the worst thing in the world, being that Arizona tends to give up points in the other direction. But these are just deep value plays. And what they're going to allow me to do, let's run down here and let's do, say, Bonino, because I basically got a hard-on over that, and Hartnell. And now what I've got is a center and a wing locked up. My average salary came up to $5,500 almost. I can throw in, down here, where was I looking before? Cheaper defenseman. Not going to find it in this game. Where was the Dallas game? I do like Steven Johns. He's a nice little punt play. But let's say I even did, let's look for a Klingberg later. I would love to get him in there. If I'm looking for, cheap guys, Janmark was cheap. Janmark gets me, Janmark and Lindell. And this isn't going to be ideal, but it isn't going to be bad. Janmark and then Lindell. And now I'm at 6,400. I've got 3 spots left in a utility. I can grab Klingberg if I needed to. I mean, there's going to be others out there. I'm loaded on Dallas anyway. I really don't want 2 Dallas defenders necessarily. But, I mean, I can get it without affecting anything. In fact, my average salary went up by doing it. If I wanted to run into one of the high-powered offenses on the night, let's say I wanted Burns. I bet I can get him pretty comfortably. 6,000, I can still work with that in my centers and my wing and my utility. If I had to take another defenseman in my utility, I could work with that. If I wanted the Nashville side, I wanted, Forsberg, that's okay. If I wanted to get up into Pittsburgh, Pittsburgh's a high-powered offense. Where would I go with Pittsburgh? Gensel's fairly cheap. Russ, they're on the first line with Crosby. Gets me exposure to Crosby. Kessel on the line. Okay, so if I did Rust, Kessel. I wouldn't want to do that. I'd probably do Gensel and Kessel because I got power play overlap and two different lines of exposure, which gets me everybody. So Gensel and Kessel. This is a great move that I love doing when it comes to um, the way I treat Pittsburgh anyway. What did I say, Gensel? And look, I still got 7,300 left for a center. Oh, I guess I actually only took my goalie out. Dadgum. That's going to affect things. My bad. 6,200 left for center. So if I want looking for a one-off, Bark Shen in St. Louis has been off to a good start. Trocheck, Stahl, Zetterberg. There's my cash play in Zetterberg. Larkin, O'Reilly, Corner, Stastny. Nothing too, but you can see the basic idea of how we're building hockey lineups. We find a stats page. We start at the bottom. First, we assess the slate. We look for where our offenses are going to be, what offenses we want. And then we go find our value, and then we start looking back in the lineups and see if we can't correlate that value with some more value or some better players. And we just roll it out there. That's what hockey does. If you want to stack it up like crazy, you lean a little bit more GPPs. I see it all the time. You got a 7-game slate here. If you want to run Stamkos, Kucherov, and Nemesnikov, or whatever the hell his name is, go for it. You're completely pigeonholed into that power play one. If it scores 2 goals tonight, you're going to do fine. If it doesn't score a goal tonight, you're not going to make the cash line anywhere because you went very boom or bust. I tend to spread out. I tend to look. I don't like teams that are loaded with the first line being all on the same power play unit, the second line all on the same power play unit, because it forces me to really pigeonhole myself. And I'm not a big fan. I will do it when I have to, but I don't enjoy doing it. I would rather see them overlap and spread out a little bit. You give me power play ones with Malkin and Crosby, Gensel, and Kessel, and man, I'll run these a first line and a second line all day, and I'll overlap on that power play. Sometimes I'll throw the Tang in there too when I can. This is just the way I tend to build my lineups. If I want access over here to Florida for whatever reason, I can see the power play ones and I can see a couple of twos down here. So if I want, I can go Trocheck and Verbata and get different power plays and guys from the same line. Or I can go Trocheck with one of these top line guys and get a centerman on the power play unit that is centering up a couple of the winging studs that are supposed to be doing the scoring. Okay, same thing in St. Louis, works the same way. If I want to Barbashev and Sabotka overlap on the two and I get top line and second line exposure, but for cheaper prices, I can run a Shin and a Schwartz with a Tarasenko or a Stastny or something like that and get exposure that way. Basically, that's the fundamentals of building a hockey lineup. It's pretty easy to do, and you get in here, you mix it up, and you play around. Some nights it hits, some nights it doesn't. It's a very volatile sport. Like I said yesterday, you trust the process, not the results. That's what Will Ferrell said that in yesterday's video. You trust the process, not the results. Don't be so results oriented, especially in these highly volatile games. Play well under your bankroll and just let the tide ride out. It's entertainment. It's fun. You're not playing for big dollars anyway. I don't know of any hockey pro in existence that pays his bills with the sport because it's such a volatile sport. I'm sure they're out there. I haven't met any yet. But the bottom line is I'm teaching you how to not lose money quickly. That's what the DFS Army is about. That's what you need me as a coach for. Yes, this was a very, very long video. You could cut it off halfway through. If you stuck out the whole time, good for you. Follow the link in the description of the tab. Come follow us be a VIP at the DFS Army. And we'd love to have you. Peace out, guys.